Every nation has a story it tells about itself. Serbia's story says, the Serbian people came from Slavic tribes who moved into the Balkans around the 6th and 7th century. That is what the history books say. That is what schools teach. But when scientists opened the DNA of the Serbian people, that story fell apart. Not a little, completely. Because the blood running through Serbian veins today is not mostly Slavic. It is something far older. Something that was living on this land thousands of years before the Slavs ever existed. And here is what makes this so hard to explain. No one can fully agree on where it came from. If you are fascinated by lost histories and hidden DNA mysteries, subscribe right now. Because this channel goes where the textbooks refuse to go. And before we continue, drop your country in the comments. Where are you watching from right now? And tell us, have you ever taken a DNA ancestry test? What did it reveal? We genuinely want to know. Now let us go back, way back, to a lineage that science still cannot fully explain. In 2022, a team of researchers at the University of Belgrade published a major study. They tested over 1,200 Serbian men from different parts of the Balkans to find out what their paternal DNA, the DNA passed from father to son, actually looked like. What they found stopped them cold. The most dominant lineage in Serbian men, by a large margin, was something called haplogroup I2A. In the region of Old Herzegovina alone, nearly 46% of men carried it. Now here's the problem. Haplogroup I2A is not Slavic. When you go to Russia, Poland, or Ukraine, the places where the Slavs originally came from, I2A is almost absent. It is not a Slavic marker. It never was. It is a lineage that belongs to the ancient Balkan world, a world that existed thousands of years before any Slavic tribe was born. Dr. Mariana Perisic, a researcher at the Institute for Anthropological Research in Zagreb, Croatia, wrote in her widely cited 2005 study in the American Journal of Human Genetics that the high frequency of I2A in the Western Balkans, quote, suggests significant continuity with pre-Slavic Balkan populations that were later Slavicized linguistically. In simple words, the Slavs changed the language. They changed the culture. But the ancient Balkan blood was already there, and it stayed. The question is, where did this ancient lineage come from? And how did it end up inside people who call themselves Slavic? The answer will take us east, far east, to a civilization most people have never heard of. Dr. Iosif Lazaridis is a geneticist at Harvard Medical School in the United States. He is one of the most respected names in ancient DNA research in the world. In multiple studies published in the journal Nature, his team has traced the deep movement of human populations across Eurasia over thousands of years. His research points to something remarkable about I2A. This lineage appears heavily in the Cucuteni Tripilian culture, a massive prehistoric civilization that covered modern-day Ukraine, Moldova, and Romania between 4800 and 3000 BCE. These were not small villages. At their peak, their settlements housed tens of thousands of people. They were one of the largest civilizations of the ancient world, and they carried I2A. Now here is the twist that changes the entire story. Centuries later, long before the Slavic migrations into the Balkans, people carrying I2A moved northward into Eastern Europe. They mixed with early Slavic populations there. Then, when those Slavic groups migrated south into the Balkans in the 6th and 7th century CE, they unknowingly brought I2A back with them. The ancient Balkan lineage had traveled north, hidden inside a Slavic wave, and then it came home. Serbian folk poetry speaks of ancestors who came from the earth itself. Scientists once dismissed this as poetic language. Now it sounds less like poetry and more like memory. But just when you think you understand a story, another layer appears, one that involves the greatest empire in human history. For nearly 400 years, Rome controlled this land. The region known as Mysia Superior, which covers present-day Serbia, was one of the most strategically important frontiers in the entire Roman Empire. Roman roads cut through these mountains. Roman soldiers garrisoned its rivers. Roman cities rose from its soil. Two emperors who shaped the entire history of the Western world were born on Serbian soil. Emperor Diocletian, Emperor Constantine the Great, the man who made Christianity the official religion of Rome, both of them from this land. In December 2023, one of the most important ancient DNA studies ever conducted on the Balkans was published in the journal Cell, one of the most respected scientific journals on Earth. The lead researcher was Dr. Iñigo Olalde, an Basque research fellow at the University of the Basque Country in Spain, working alongside scientists from Harvard University, the Institute of Evolutionary Biology in Barcelona, and the Institute of Archaeology in Belgrade. Their team analyzed the DNA of 136 individuals buried in present-day Serbia and Croatia during the Roman and early medieval periods. It is the largest ancient DNA study of the Balkans ever done. What they found inside Roman-era Serbian burial sites shocked the academic world. 3 men, buried in Serbian soil, showed DNA ancestry from sub-Saharan and North Africa. 1 man, buried at the Roman city of Viminatium near the Danube, showed ancestry tracing directly to East Africa. He died in adolescence. He may have been a soldier, a slave, a merchant, we will never know, but he had traveled thousands of miles from home, and he died on the northern edge of Rome's empire. This was Rome at its peak, cosmopolitan, connected, global. And yet, despite 400 years of Roman roads, Roman religion, Latin language, and Roman coins, the pre-Roman Balkan genetic structure survived almost entirely intact beneath it all. Dr. Olalde's study stated it directly, quote, "Despite extensive militarization and cultural influence, we find little ancestry contribution from peoples of Italic descent. Rome's culture conquered this land. Rome's blood did not. And then came the migration history calls a conquest, but science calls something else entirely. In the 6th and 7th century CE, the Western Roman Empire had already collapsed. The Byzantine Empire was weakening, and into the vacuum, Slavic tribes poured into the Balkans in one of history's greatest migrations. The standard story is simple. The Slavs came. They replaced the old population. A new people was born. But Dr. Olalde's 2023 cell study found something different. The ancient DNA from Serbian and Croatian burial sites, from people who lived after the Slavic migrations, showed both incoming Slavic ancestry and local pre-Slavic Balkan ancestry present at the same time, in the same bodies. The two populations did not replace each other. They merged. The study concluded that Slavic arrival in the Balkans represented, quote, "one of the largest permanent demographic changes anywhere in Europe during the migration period, with Slavic ancestry making up 30 to 60% of the ancestry of modern Balkan people. But the other 40 to 70%, that was already there. And when scientists ran a full genomic comparison, modern Serbs plotted in PCA analysis between Eastern European Slavic populations and Southern Balkan groups like Greeks and Bulgarians, genetically intermediate between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. The Slavic language won, the Slavic culture won, but the ancient Balkan genome refused to surrender, which raises the most uncomfortable question in this entire story. Who exactly were the pre-Slavic people the Slavs merged with? The genetic study published on Zenodo in January 2026, titled "The Genetic Origins of the Serbian People," lays it out clearly. Before the Slavs, this land was home to 3 distinct ancient populations: the Illyrians, the Thracians, and the Romanized Balkan peoples who absorbed centuries of Roman culture while keeping their ancient blood. None of them called themselves Serbian. None of them spoke Serbian. None of them prayed in the way their descendants do today. But their biology persisted through every transformation. Dr. Lazaridis' 2016 study in Nature, co-authored with researchers from over 30 countries, confirmed that Neolithic farmers entered the Balkans approximately 8,000 years ago from Anatolia, mixing with local hunter-gatherers already living here. That mixture formed the genetic foundation that still exists in modern Serbian DNA. Think about that for a moment. 8,000 years. The same bloodline. Under every empire, every religion, every political border that has ever been drawn on this land. And beneath even the Illyrians and Thracians, beneath the Neolithic farmers, there is one more ancient layer. One that was found in a 5,000-year-old grave in Serbian soil. 5,000 years ago, long before Rome, long before the Slavs, long before the Illyrians built their first city, a group of nomadic horsemen swept across Europe from the east. They came from a vast flat grassland north of the Black Sea called the Pontic-Caspian Steppe. Scientists call them the Yamnaya people. Historians call them the Indo-Europeans. They did not just bring their genes. They brought something that may be the most powerful force in human history: language. The proto-language they spoke eventually became Sanskrit, Latin, Greek, Persian, English, and Serbian. Every major Indo-European language spoken on Earth today traces back to the tongue of these Bronze Age nomads. Their genetic marker, haplogroup R1a, is detectable in Serbian men right now, today. A direct paternal thread stretching from a Bronze Age horseman on the Ukrainian steppe to a man living in Belgrade in 2026. Ancient origins reported on DNA extracted from 5,000-year-old skeletal remains found in present-day Serbia, confirming that this steppe ancestry entered the Balkans during the Bronze Age and never left. The burial customs at these Serbian sites mirror exactly what archaeologists find thousands of miles east. The same ochre powder dusted over the bones, the same horse sacrifices, the same crouched position of the body, the same fingerprint of a people who crossed a continent, a nomad's language, a farmer's land, a hunter-gatherer's ancient blood, all three living inside every Serbian person alive today. But then came an empire that ruled this land for 500 years. And what the DNA recorded during those 500 years is perhaps the most surprising finding in this entire story. In 1389, at the Battle of Kosovo, the Ottoman Empire defeated the Serbian forces. For the next nearly 500 years, this land was under Ottoman rule. 500 years is a long time. Long enough, you would think, to change the genetics of a population completely. And yet, the autosomal DNA analysis of modern Serbs shows only minimal Anatolian and Near Eastern ancestry. Far less than 5 centuries of shared borders and population contact should logically produce. How is that possible? The answer appears to be the Serbian Orthodox Church. While the Ottoman Empire controlled the politics, the Church controlled the community. It preserved genealogical records. It maintained cultural boundaries. It kept communities endogamous, marrying within their own group, generation after generation. Dr. Gordon Locke, a biochemist and geneticist at the University of Zagreb in Croatia and co-founder of the Genos Research Center, has noted in multiple studies that Balkan populations show remarkable genetic stability across historical periods despite intense external political pressure. In simple terms, the people bent. The DNA did not. The Ottomans left enormous marks on Serbian culture, the architecture, the food, the hundreds of Turkish loanwords still used in Serbian today, the music, all of it shaped by 5 centuries of Ottoman presence. But the genome of the Serbian people moved in the opposite direction. It barely changed. And now, we reach the finding that even the scientists were not fully prepared for. Dr. Olalde's 2023 cell study, the same Harvard-led study that analyzed 136 ancient Balkan genomes, dropped a finding in its modern DNA analysis that has quietly shaken the academic world. Serbs and Croats are genomically near identical. The same proportions of ancient Balkan ancestry, the same Slavic components, the same haplogroup distributions. The study stated directly, quote, "The picture that emerges is not of division, but of shared history. 2 nations with different alphabets, different religions, a brutal 20th century war that killed hundreds of thousands of people on both sides. One genome." This is where genetics becomes not just scientific, but deeply human. Serbian and Croatian historians have spent decades building the case for separation. Geneticists keep finding the opposite. Now, there is a final population in the Serbian mountains that adds one last unresolved thread to this story. A semi-nomadic, Romance-speaking people scattered across the Serbian highlands called the Vlachs. Their DNA mixes Roman-era Balkan ancestry with ancient elements that no migration model fully explains. Their language is related to Latin, not Slavic. They have lived alongside Serbs for over 1,000 years, and science still cannot fully account for where their DNA came from. They are a ghost population, living proof that the Balkans still holds genetic secrets no one has fully unlocked. Step back and look at the whole picture. Serbian DNA contains the blood of Paleolithic hunter-gatherers who lived on the banks of the Danube 10,000 years ago. It contains the DNA of Neolithic farmers who walked out of Anatolia 8,000 years ago. It contains the ancestry of Bronze Age steppe nomads who arrived 5,000 years ago, speaking the first ancestor of Serbian. It holds traces of Illyrian and Thracian tribal people, of Roman soldiers and traders from 3 different continents. of Slavic migrants who traveled south in the 6th century CE, of Ottoman-era resilience. All of it compressed into one genome. The 2026 review paper on Serbian genetic origins published on Zenodo concluded that Serbian ethnogenesis reflects, in their exact words, Slavic cultural and linguistic transformation superimposed upon an indigenous Balkan genetic foundation. In the 2023 Cell study by Iñigo Olalde, Dr. David Reich of Harvard Medical School, and Dr. Carlos Lazafox of the Institute of Evolutionary Biology in Barcelona confirmed that Serbs today carry between 30 and 60% Slavic ancestry, meaning 40 to 70% of their DNA is pre-Slavic, ancient, and Balkan. Here is what science cannot answer. It can tell you where each strand of DNA traveled from. It cannot tell you what it means. Every Serbian alive today carries the biology of people who had no name for Serbia, no concept of Orthodox Christianity, no knowledge of the Serbian language, no idea that centuries later, all of their bloodlines would converge in the same river valley and call itself one people. If your ancestors were Illyrian, Thracian, Bronze Age nomad, Roman soldier, and Slavic farmer, and all of them, together, were called Serbian, then what is Serbia? Not a bloodline, not a border, not just a migration, something older, something stranger, and something that science, even now, cannot fully explain.